friends, I am Arpit and now I am here with the second part of Yojana for the month of November 2023. In the first part, we have seen the details about the New Delhi's leaders' declaration, all the 10 points, and one among them was the Green Development Pact. We will be covering them over here. Then we also studied in the first part the key outcomes of the G20 summit which happened in India in September 2023. Two among them were the Global Biofuels Alliance and the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. So these both will be covered also in this particular part. First is the Green Development Pact. It was one part of the New Delhi Leaders Declaration. Now, what is this Green Development Pact? In a nutshell, if I have to tell you, this Green Development Pact focuses on ecosystem restoration. It is based on the principle of sustainable development, means meeting the needs of the present by not compromising the ability of the future generations. This is the basic philosophy of sustainable development which has been adopted in this Green Development Pact also. Environmental pollution, global warming, climate change, degradation of land, marine litter, all these are problems with which all the countries in the world are struggling with, whether developed, developing, or underdeveloped. The difference is that underdeveloped and developing countries do not have that capacity to fight this particular challenge as compared to the developed ones. So, the problem for the developing and underdeveloped countries hence amplifies if I see this context. And it is a moral obligation and a duty on the developed countries to help the developing and underdeveloped countries. So through this Green Development Pact, India also advocated and became a voice of the Global South. Global South is developing and underdeveloped countries of Asia, Africa, and South America, and kept this thing in the G20 forum that in order to, meet the targets of environment conservation, the developing and underdeveloped countries will be needing financial support from the developed countries. So this was also being talked about over here in this Green Development Pact. So if we look into the details of this, when we start with this, then the Global Biofuels Alliance. Biofuels are those fuels which are made from biological elements. Biological elements can be flora, fauna, any. These elements are generally wasted, but now these elements are being used to make fuels. Those fuels are known as biofuels. Certain examples of biofuels: ethanol, biodiesel, and there are certain, I would say, benefits of using biofuels or even blending these biofuels with the conventional fuels which we have. Like for example, we blend ethanol with petrol, we blend biodiesel with diesel. What is the significance? Pollution reduces, emission reduces by blending. This is scientifically proven. The import burden obviously reduces because many countries, for example India, are importing 85% of their oil requirements. So if we start producing ethanol over here and start blending it with petrol, let's suppose we have this policy, the National Biofuels Policy, which aims to blend 20% of ethanol with petrol. By 2025, we'll be doing this. So our 20% requirement of oil will reduce. Hence, it will help us. So these are some significances, and for this particular, I would say, more and more enhancement of the usage of biofuels, technological, I would say, facilitation in this respect of biofuels, this Global Biofuels Alliance has been formed. This Global Biofuels Alliance, there are 9 countries, they've come together, technology will be shared, and promotion of production of biofuels and usage of biofuels will increase. Then the The next topic is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. This is basically a connectivity corridor, intercontinental connectivity, if I say, connecting Asia and Europe. And obviously, this is one of the answers to China's very ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. This India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor is basically going to be a massive project which will include multiple modes of transports like the sea transport, the road transport and the rail transport. So all these are going to be there. We'll see which all countries are part of this and how it is going to be. It is obviously in a concept stage right now because India proposed this and inaugurated this during this G20 Leaders Summit. Things on this have to be into picture. They'll be into picture in the times to come. So it is just conceptualized right now. So let us start with this Green Development Pact. This Green Development Pact roadmap for a sustainable future. Sustainable future means, it can be linked with the term sustainable development. If I have to define sustainable development, meeting the development needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs in the future. This is what sustainable development's concept is all about. And this Green Development Pact is premised on this particular, I would say, concept of sustainable development. It deals with the social, economic, and environmental aspects of, I would say, sustainable development. And it is very much needed because the entire world is presently struggling with this right now. The guiding principle behind this Green Development Pact is none other than the principle of sustainable development, which I have just told you. The basic principle of sustainable development is to strive a balance amongst the economic, environmental, and social dimensions of the developmental pathways in such a manner that present and emergent needs are addressed while safeguarding the interest of the future generations. Now, an example to make you understand things better. And I hope that by this example you'll be able to relate it in a much better way. Now we produce electricity. India. 55% of electricity in India is being produced by burning coal. If I would be talking about 10 years ago, this figure 55% which is now, it was around 70%. So we were mining coal, burning it, producing heat, electricity. We were doing it like this. Now just imagine if we would have been doing like this only. In a few years' time, we will exhaust all our coal reserves. Because the rate of extraction of coal is very much faster as compared to the rate of formation. It is a fossil fuel. It takes thousands of years to form. So, one day we will be exhausting all the coal reserves and we will be leaving nothing for the future generations. We will be compromising, I would say, their ability to develop. So now we found out alternate ways to generate electricity. For example, solar power, or for that matter, hydropower, nuclear power. All these are, I would say, elements of sustainable development. We are meeting the needs of the present by generating electricity by solar power or hydroelectric power. And simultaneously, we are also conserving the interests of the future generations. We are not going to compromise their, I would say, ability because we are conserving coal for them. If in future they need coal, they can extract coal. This is basically what the concept of sustainable development is all about. And on this premise only, this Green Development Pact is based. Now, when India took up the presidency of G20 in December 2022, climate and environmental aspects were two very much important, I would say, issues to be discussed. Or they were identified as core topics. And India delivered by developing or signing this Green Development Pact. Now, what is Green Development Pact? This Green Development Pact Basically, the G20 leaders adopted this Green Development Pact through the New Delhi Leaders Declaration, which we saw in the last, I would say, video, that is part 1 of 3, which demonstrated their collective commitment towards addressing crucial matters. What are these crucial matters? We will see these crucial matters. Protection and conservation of forests and ecosystems. Forest needs to be conserved. Land restoration has to be done. Basically, whatever land has been degraded, that has to be restored. Means one land is fertile, one land is semi-arid, one land is arid due to climate change, or I would say less rainfall or more and more usage of water because of the increasing population. There are many patches or many areas which are converting into urban lands where forests are being cleared and that land is being used for other purposes. So land degradation is happening. We have to restore that land. We have to stop degradation first and restore that land if we want a sustainable future. If we want our future generations to survive and to live a better life. Then action against marine plastic litter. This is a very big problem globally. Very big problem. And a lot of aquatic ecosystem is impacted due to this. And we also recognize the power of collaboration in environmental action. Basically, these 3 environmental actions we have to take: forest and ecosystems conservation, second, land restoration, and third was marine plastic litter. These 3 are the main components of Green Development Pact. And in this pact, we also talked about power of collaboration. In a nutshell, if I have to say, the Green Development Pact has placed major emphasis on ecosystem restoration. That has to be restored. This is part of ecosystem, part of ecosystem, part of ecosystem. So, that has to be restored. That is the main agenda or main emphasis by the Green Developmental Pact. Now, when I talk about land degradation and restoration, now last year, that is 2022, we adopted 13 to 30 targets, which simply meant that we have to restore 30% of all degraded land by 2030. That is why it was called as 30 into 30 targets. Now, these people in G20, they have kept or they have increased this target to reduce land degradation by 50% by 2040. Here, they have to restore 30% of the land. Here, reduce land degradation by 50% by 2040. There's a difference. We have to reduce land degradation. And here, we have to do land restoration. If we are able to reduce land degradation, then automatically the need for land restoration will reduce. That is the main, I would say, concept over here. Now, commitment towards prevention and mitigation of forest fires. This is something which is quite common. We saw it in Australia, we saw it in Americas, we even saw it in India. This has become, I would say, a frequent or a routine affair. That has to be controlled, and some forest fires are definitely caused due to anthropogenic factors, means human factors. Next is marine litter. I would say water everywhere. The earth, majority of the earth is covered by water. Aquatic ecosystem is huge. I would say the biggest of them all. And, it is one of the most polluted ecosystems as well. Marine ecosystem, or I would say aquatic ecosystem, not only comprises of the oceans or the seas, but yes, the freshwater streams also, or the rivers also, which are flowing on the mainland countries. Those are very polluted. And who is responsible for this pollution? We, the people, who are not so responsible. And, it definitely and drastically harms the aquatic ecosystem. That has to be tackled. If that is not tackled, then it will definitely hamper the blue economy. A G20 adopted high-level principles for sustainable and resilient blue ocean-based economy and expressed determination towards harnessing the potential of seas and oceans in a sustainable manner. So, This is about marine litter. Now, one thing I forgot from the previous slide, and that is Gandhinagar Implementation Roadmap and Gandhinagar Information Platform. This reducing land degradation by 50% by 2040 is known as the Gandhinagar Implementation Roadmap. UPSC, if it asks in prelims that the Gandhinagar Implementation Roadmap is associated with, then you should know that it is associated with reducing land degradation, adopted in G20 summit in 2023. So this level of information you should be having with yourself. Now, conclusion: the Green Development Pact comprises all the issues that are crucial for the world and especially the Global South. Global South is basically developing and underdeveloped countries of Asia, Africa, and South America. This problem of environmental or ecosystem degradation is being faced by one and all, whether developed, developing, or underdeveloped. Huh? The developed countries have the capacity to fight it. They have all the money, they have all the resources. Whereas, the developing and underdeveloped countries do not have it, which actually amplifies the problem for them. So, we need to keep this at global stage and ask or demand the developed countries to help the developing and underdeveloped countries in this aspect. They should be helping, means the developed ones should be helping because it is a moral obligation on them. So that is something which needs to be done, and Green Development Pact can definitely motivate or put pressure on the developed countries to help the developing countries. It will also help in achieving sustainable development goals because multiple sustainable development goals are for environment conservation, or I would say ecosystem restoration and all. Now, this was rightly picked up in India, that is under India's presidency of G20, and hopefully, things will progress on this front. The Gandhinagar Implementation Roadmap will definitely, or I would say should be definitely, a success. So that is all from this. Now, the Global Biofuels Alliance. If I talk about the Global Biofuels Alliance, you need to first understand what biofuels are. Biofuels. Bio, as the name suggests, these fuels have been made from living organisms. Living organisms can be either flora or fauna. Are they, in use? Definitely they are in use. Countries like Brazil, countries like USA, and now India also are using biofuels. How are biofuels made? There are multiple processes of making biofuels depending on which material we are using for creating the biofuels. Biofuels can be used from agricultural residue or can be made from agricultural residue, like for example rice husk, like for example sugarcane molasses. We ferment them, process them, and we convert them into ethanol. Ethanol is a biofuel. And then we can blend ethanol with petrol to use it as a fuel in our cars or in our vehicles. What will happen? What is the significance of biofuels? There are multiple significance. First of all, environmental pollution will reduce. Emissions with blended fuel are less. Emissions with purely biofuels are more less, I would say. So, first of all, environmental pollution reduces. Another aspect of reducing environmental pollution, I'm on the first point right now. Environmental pollution reduces because vehicular emissions, which vehicles are using biofuels, reduces. That causes reduction in emissions. Now, on the other hand, you see that biofuels are being made from agricultural residue. Agricultural residue, I took one example as rice husk. These rice husk is known as parali, which the farmers are burning, and due to which the Delhi NCR is choking. That will also reduce if the farmers in Haryana and Punjab, start sending their agricultural residue to ethanol making factories, which the Prime Minister last year inaugurated in Panipat, Haryana. So that will also tackle reduction in emissions. By this way also emissions can be reduced. Our second point is our import bill will be reduced because we will reduce importing the oil because we are blending 20% blending targets are there. So it will definitely reduce the import bill. So it is like this. So we see this Global Biofuels Alliance. The founding members of this Global Biofuel Alliance, India, Brazil, and USA. These three countries where 85% of the biofuels production happens and 81% consumption happens. We've kept target of 20% blending by ethanol with petrol in India by 2025. We have to achieve this. If I talk about Brazil, Brazil has already achieved 27% blending and it has substantially reduced its import bill. So we can see the founding members, India, Brazil, USA. These countries contribute 85% of global production and 81% of consumption. It was launched at the G20 summit. The members of this Global Biofuels Alliance, there are 9 members: Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, India, Italy, Mauritius, South Africa, UAE, and USA, out of which USA, India, and Brazil are the founding members. Some observer members are also there. Our best friend these days, Canada and Singapore. So these countries are part of the Global Biofuels Alliance right now. You can see the leaders and you can see the smiles on their faces. They are happy. Now the aim of this, the alliance intends to expedite the global uptake of biofuels by facilitating technological advancements in making biofuels, because countries like Brazil and USA have this technology, advanced technology for making biofuels. Then intensifying the utilization of sustainable biofuels and shaping robust standard setting and certification. Robust standard setting and certification simply means that, your vehicles, if you are making in one country, they should be, compatible in other countries also, with the fuel of other countries also. It should be like this. So that will happen only when the global standards are set. The alliance will also act as a central repository of knowledge and an expert hub with respect to the biofuels. Now, significance of ethanol blending. Ethanol is a biofuel which is blended with petrol. Ethanol is produced either by sugar molasses or by rice husk. Now, what will it do? First is, it will reduce dependency on petroleum, because we have this target of 20% blending of ethanol in petrol, which simply means that from 2025 onwards, if you go to buy 1 liter of petrol, in that 1 liter, 800 ml will be petrol and 200 ml will be ethanol. This is how blending will happen. Now, we've reduced the usage of petrol. It has reduced our dependency on petrol. So, it is like this. It will save money. India's net import of petroleum was 185 million tons in 2020-21 at a cost of USD $551 billion. Most of the petroleum products are used in transportation, and therefore E20 program, E20 is this 20% blending program, can save the country USD $4 billion annually. It is less polluting also, as ethanol is a less polluting fuel and offers equivalent efficiency at a lower cost than petrol. So the vehicular emissions coming out from the vehicles using this E20 fuel or blended fuel will definitely be less. But there are certain challenges as well. The first is risk of hunger. What if the farmers start growing those crops only which make biofuels? Because obviously when it will start, the government will incentivize this biofuel production, or the farmers who are producing crops for biofuels. And what if they are diverting their lands for making those or growing those crops which are only responsible or only making biofuels? Because this is something which the demand will never go down. The demand will rise and rise and rise because number of vehicles in India are rising along with the population. So it is like this. There are less chances of, I would say, low quality production or some crop loss and all. This is also going to be tackled. Then the cost production of biofuels as of now is expensive. Although in the times to come, it may come down, but as of now it is expensive. And unfortunately, the third point, that is water use, the crops which are used for making biofuels like rice or sugarcane, both of these crops are water intensive crops. They require or consume a lot of water. That is something which is a concerning thing for or with respect to biofuels in the country. So these are related issues with biofuels. Now, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. This is basically an intercontinental connectivity corridor which will have multiple modes of transport like the sea transport, the road transport, the rail transport, connecting Asia and Europe. It is considered to be India's answer to China's Belt and Road Initiative. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a mega project which aims to connect three continents, Asia, Africa and Europe, through multimodal projects. So this is not so massive. This is not so massive as BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. But yes, India is trying to build up connectivity in tits and bits. Like for example, just before the G20 summit, the Indian Prime Minister went for the ASEAN summit and the East Asia summit 2 days before that. And there, the Prime Minister also urged the Southeast Asian countries to establish connectivity projects. So we are seeing India, Middle East, Europe, but India plans to establish connectivity with Southeast Asia also. So it would be Southeast Asia till Europe, and India is in the center. So like this, we are going to tackle. Maybe in the future, we are going to cover Africa also. So this is basically the thing. But as of now, let us see this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. It comprises of basically two sub-corridors. First is East Corridor, connecting India and Arabian Gulf. This is the East Corridor. Then second is Northern Corridor, connecting Middle East to Europe. This is the Northern Corridor. The countries which are part of the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor: India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, this is Jordan, this blue one is Israel, this is Italy, this is France, this is Germany. So all these countries are part of this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Here is the list of the countries over here with the color coding. Now the initiative, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and President of USA, Mr. Joe Biden, co-chaired a special event on partnership for global infrastructure and investment. Now USA is not part of this, but yes, USA has its separate initiative called as PGII, Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which was launched by the G7 countries, group of 7 countries. And we'll also cover the details of this as well. And PGII plus India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor can be, I would say, as massive as BRI. So we were collaborating here. The event aimed at unlocking greater investment for infrastructure development and strengthening connectivity in its various dimensions between India, Middle East and Europe. It comprises of Eastern Corridor and a Northern Corridor. Railway, ship rail transit networks, road transport routes, all will be there. Leaders of European Union, France, Germany, Italy, Mauritius, all were present at this particular event. Now, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor is, I would say, conceptualized right now. So we do not have much on that. But yes, PGII, Partnership for Global Infra and Investment. So that is also another infrastructure project which is envisaged by the G7 countries. India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, another project, and Belt and Road Initiative by China, another project. So obviously, PGII and India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor both are collectively against BRI, or they are counterbalancing BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. Partnership for Global Infra and Investment. United States aims to raise $200 billion over 5 years to fund the needed infrastructure in developing countries under a G7 initiative aimed at countering China's Belt and Road project. The good part is that this infrastructure is going to come up in developing countries. The overall aim is to mobilize $600 billion over the next 5 years. Out of this $600 billion, $200 billion are going to be mobilized by USA alone among the G7 countries. The announcement was an official launch and a rebranding of what rolled out last year. Last year means 2021. The initiative was named as Build Back Better World, B3W, and in 2022 it was renamed and it was called as PGII. That is, Partnership for Global Infra and Investment. The efforts is now called as PGII. Now about PGII and PGII as an alternate to BRI. So basically, 4 major categories are there where project funding will be done. First is clean energy. Obviously, developing countries, in the developing countries, investment will happen by the developed countries. This is one such positive, I would say, aspect. Health systems, gender equality, and ICT, that is information and communications technology. In these 4 domains, investments will be done apart from creating hard infrastructure like ports, roads, railways, and all. At the center of PGII is a different approach as compared to BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. Now, Belt and Road Initiative, Government of China funds the projects or gives loans to the other governments, that is state to state funding. But here, what is the different approach? Using limited government funding to catalyze greater volumes of private capital. We have to mobilize private capital, and when private sector is involved, they make the projects efficient. That is one such, I would say, advantage of involving the private sector. And this is the major difference between BRI and this PGII. In BRI, no private investment is there, only state to state or government to government funding will be there. This stands in contrast to BRI, which provides financing largely via state to state channels, creating unsustainable debt levels also. So that is causing a problem to many countries, like for example Sri Lanka. Last year, crisis in Sri Lanka happened. One of the major factors for those crises was unsustainable debt taken from China by Sri Lanka. So this is basically PGII, and PGII along with India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor can be an answer to the BRI. This is what the leaders of these countries at least are hoping. So this was it from the second part of Yojana for November 2023, and I will be now meeting you in the third part. The third part is all about digital public infrastructure and again what technical topic, that is AI, that is artificial intelligence. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing. Most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.